Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful framework for taking all that deep technical expertise you have and turning it into strategic value that people actually recognize. If you've ever felt like your best work just isn't getting the attention it deserves, well, this one is for you.
So let's just start with a question for all the technical wizards out there. Do you ever get that feeling that your most brilliant solutions, the ones born from late nights and deep forensic dives, somehow just go completely unnoticed by leadership? You solve the problem, the system's stable again, but the strategic value of what you just did, it seems to just vanish into thin air.
And this quote right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Your expertise is critical, no doubt about it. But if it doesn't speak the language of business value, it just stays trapped. So we're going to explore a powerful way to change that right now.
Okay, so how do we make that value visible? The key is in this systematic process called wisdom internalization and externalization, or WIE for short. The whole system is called the Griot Engine, which is named after West African storytellers who were tasked with preserving history and wisdom. Let's break down what that really means.
So WE is basically this dual motion engine. Think of it this way. Every single time you take a technical action, you're not just fixing something. You are literally creating wisdom. WE is the process of capturing that wisdom, using it to make your own team better, and then packaging it up so that everyone else can finally see its true impact.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this splits the goal into two really distinct and powerful paths. Over on the left, you've got internalization. That's all about feeding wisdom back into your team. It creates this compounding knowledge base that stops the same problems from happening over and over again. Then on the right, you've got externalization. This is all about broadcasting your strategic value out into the world, creating a portfolio of results that leadership can actually see and, more importantly, understand.
And the ultimate prize in this whole process is what the source calls sovereign capital. Now, this is the real game changer. It's the valuable proprietary intellectual property that is born from your team's day-to-day work. This isn't just about doing the work anymore. It's about systematically capturing and owning the unique insights that come from it.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works. This isn't just some high-level theory, The entire system is built on 4 core pillars, a kind of tradecraft that creates a process you can repeat. These 4 pillars, they really form a production line. It kicks off with capturing data, then it uses this cool term, narrative alchemy, to translate that raw data into a story that's actually compelling. The final steps are all about feeding those lessons back to your team and broadcasting the results to the business. It's a system for turning chaos into strategic assets. And this is a brilliant illustration of the engine in action. Step 1, you capture the raw data in a standardized way. Step 2, and this part is absolutely crucial, you translate it. You strip out all the jargon and reframe everything around business impact. And finally, step 3, you broadcast. The translated value goes outward to the execs, and the core lesson goes inward to make your team smarter. It's a workflow that produces pure clarity right from the middle of chaos. Now that we've got the blueprint, let's look at how applying this can literally shape your career. Because this framework, it isn't just a process, it's a map. It outlines a very deliberate journey across 4 tiers of impact, taking you from a hands-on practitioner all the way to an industry-defining visionary.
You start right here at Tier 1 as the practitioner. And at this stage, the main focus is just flawless execution. It's all about proving you have the fundamentals down cold and that you really get the basic hygiene of your craft.
At this stage, your outputs are very tangible. We're talking things like technical blog posts or clean, well-documented GitHub repositories. Your audience is mostly your peers and maybe some hiring managers. The core goal is simple. Prove you're technically competent by showing your work. Okay, next you evolve into the architect. And this is a big step up. You're no longer just executing individual tasks. You are now designing the processes and the frameworks that other people are going to follow. And your work starts to reflect this shift. You move from writing code to creating white papers and architecture diagrams. Your audience now includes directors and VPs who, let's be honest, aren't interested in the code but care a whole lot about the outcome. So here, your job is to translate complex technical problems into clear business value, proving you can own a process from beginning to end.
The third tier is the strategist. At this point, you're not just building systems, you are becoming a recognized voice in the wider industry.
As a strategist, you're not just solving problems, you're defining how problems ought to be solved. Your outputs become conference talks and preprint papers, and your audience is now the C-suite and other industry experts. You are establishing yourself as a genuine authority.
And then finally, you reach the absolute pinnacle, the visionary. This is where you go beyond just working within the existing systems. You are now creating entirely new frameworks, new systems that will define the future of your entire field.
At this top tier, your outputs aren't just marketing assets anymore. They are foundational intellectual property. We're talking peer-reviewed journals and major keynote presentations for boards and academia. Your goal here is nothing less than to define industry standards and achieve what the source calls unassailable credibility.
So, what's the most crucial point of this entire journey, from practitioner all the way to visionary? What is the one thing you should really walk away with from this whole framework?
It's this. This quote really says it all. The core transformation across those 4 tiers is learning how to become the ultimate translator. You become that essential bridge between the deep, complex technical work happening down in the trenches and the high-level strategic decisions being made up in the boardroom.
And this really captures the huge shift in mindset. You stop being the person who just does the work, you become someone who captures, packages, and demonstrates the value of the intellectual property that is generated by the work. When you formalize this process, you prove that your team doesn't just solve problems, it actively generates strategic wisdom for the entire enterprise.
And that leaves us with a final thought to mull over. Take a second and think about the projects you're working on right now. Think about the last big incident you resolved or the last system you built. What invaluable wisdom, what sovereign capital is hiding in there, just waiting for you to unlock it?